They told her to wait outside because they thought she didn't belong. 1 minute later, she walked back in as their new CEO. What happened next shook the entire company and made headlines around the world. This is the story of Vanessa Parker, and you won't believe how it ends. It all started with a moment that would make anyone's blood boil. Dressed in a sharp navy blue suit and heels that clicked powerfully with every step, Vanessa Parker walked into the glass doors of the towering corporate headquarters of Delvo Technologies, a rising star in the world of AI and cloud computing. She wasn't here for an interview or a tour. She was the newly appointed CEO of the entire company. But the receptionist didn't know that. Without even looking up, the young man behind the desk said coldly, "Ma'am, deliveries go around the back. If you're waiting for someone, please step outside." Vanessa blinked in surprise. "Excuse me, you can wait outside," he repeated, barely glancing at her. "This entrance is for executives only." In that moment, Vanessa realized something very important. These people had already made up their minds about her. They saw her skin color, her gender, maybe even her confidence, and decided she didn't belong. They had no idea who they were talking to. Vanessa didn't lash out. She didn't explain herself. She simply turned and walked out the door, calmly, but with purpose. On the sidewalk, she pulled out her phone and made a single call. Her voice was even and professional, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. "Security? This is Vanessa Parker, CEO. I need the executive leadership team in conference room A in 10 minutes. HR 2. She paused. "And please make sure reception is aware of who I am now." Exactly 1 minute later, Vanessa walked back in, this time flanked by 2 board members and a security escort. The receptionist's eyes widened. He stood up too late, clearly panicking. I didn't know who you were," he stammered. "No," Vanessa said coolly. "You didn't ask." Word traveled fast. The elevator ride was silent, but tension was building. Employees peeked from cubicles. Whispers spread across the office. By the time she stepped into the conference room, a dozen senior managers were already seated, looking confused and unbothered, some even smirking. They didn't know her either. Not yet. Vanessa set down her folder, adjusted her jacket, and stood tall at the head of the table. "I'm Vanessa Parker," she said, "your new CEO. And before I even made it to this room, someone in this building told me I didn't belong. That says everything I need to know about the culture you've built here." Silence. You could hear a pin drop. "I was brought here to fix a company that's been bleeding talent, suffocating innovation, and fostering a toxic environment at the top. That stops today." She opened her folder and began reading off names, clearly and with confidence. Michael Drew, Chief Operating Officer. Repeated HR complaints about intimidation tactics. You're dismissed. Cheryl Raymond, VP of Marketing. Accusations of racial favoritism and undermining junior staff. Terminated. Brian Ellis, Director of Development. Ignored 3 internal reports of workplace harassment. Effective immediately, you're out. Gasps echoed across the room. Phones buzzed. Faces turned pale. Vanessa wasn't here to make friends. She was here to make change. And this was just the beginning. But where did this strength come from? Vanessa Parker wasn't born into privilege. She was raised in a modest neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, by a single mother who juggled 2 jobs just to pay the bills. From an early age, Vanessa knew that if she wanted to succeed, she'd have to work twice as hard and stay 3 steps ahead. She earned scholarships, graduated top of her class, then broke barriers in every company she joined. She started her own tech firm, built it from the ground up, and sold it for over $100 million by age 36. She didn't just survive the corporate world, she dominated it. And now, she was here to transform Delvo Technologies from the inside out. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa implemented a full cultural reset, bias training, new leadership hires, a mentorship program for women and underrepresented employees. She held one-on-one sessions with junior staff. She listened. She acted. The media got wind of the story. Headlines praised her boldness. Social media blew up with support. Employees who had once considered quitting now called her a legend. Productivity soared. And for the first time in years, Delvo became a place people were proud to work at. And what happened to the receptionist? Vanessa didn't fire him. Instead, she called him in for a conversation. You assumed the worst about me, she said, but I believe people can grow. You have two choices, training and a fresh start, or the door. He chose to stay, and he changed, because that's what leadership is. Not just power, purpose, accountability, transformation. Vanessa didn't just walk into a company. She walked into a broken system and rebuilt it one decision at a time. And it all started with a moment at the front desk. Exactly 1 minute later, the same receptionist who had told her to wait outside was frozen in disbelief as Vanessa Parker re-entered the building. This time, not alone. Two sharply dressed board members walked on either side of her, and two security personnel followed close behind, their presence silent but powerful. This wasn't a negotiation anymore. Vanessa didn't yell. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She walked right past the desk, paused just long enough to face the now pale receptionist, and said in a firm but calm voice, "Take me to conference room A. And please inform a senior leadership team to be there in 10 minutes. This is no longer a request. It's an order." The receptionist scrambled to stand up. His voice cracked. I didn't know who you were." Vanessa turned, locked eyes with him, and replied coolly, "But you assumed. That's the problem." With that, she walked away. Whispers began echoing through the building. Employees peeked around cubicles, unsure of what was happening, but sensing it was big. Something was different. Something was about to change. Phones buzzed. Heads turned. Some froze when they saw the board members in tow. Upstairs, the leadership team was already gathering in the sleek, glass-walled conference room A. They were unaware of what had just occurred at reception, but the presence of HR staff and board representatives had everyone on edge. Some sat with crossed arms. Others wore fake smiles, clearly unsure how to behave in the face of this surprise meeting. Vanessa entered the room with confidence. She didn't glance at the fancy artwork or designer furniture. She walked straight to the head of the table, placed a black folder down, and stood tall, silent for just a few seconds longer than what felt comfortable. Then she spoke. "My name is Vanessa Parker," she said clearly, scanning the room. "As of this morning, I am the Chief Executive Officer of Delvo Technologies." Eyes widened. A few mouths hung open. Some shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Vanessa let the weight of her words settle in the room before continuing. "Before I made it through the front door today, I was told by someone in this building that I didn't belong, that I should wait outside. And what's worse, that wasn't surprising." She paused. "It's clear to me that the culture here has made far too many assumptions about who belongs, who leads, and who gets a seat at this table." No one dared to speak. The air was thick with tension. Vanessa opened her folder, revealing several sheets of paper, each one with names, HR reports, and documented complaints. "I've spent the last 3 weeks reviewing every report, every exit interview, and every unresolved issue swept under this company's very expensive rug." Then she began reading. Michael Rayner, VP of Finance, repeated complaints of verbal abuse, manipulation, and fostering a toxic environment. "You're dismissed, effective immediately." Diane Pollard, head of HR, "You personally shut down multiple harassment complaints without even conducting full investigations. You failed the very department meant to protect employees. You're dismissed." One by one, she called out the names. She wasn't angry. She was focused, clear, professional. The kind of leader who didn't just want change, she demanded it. Several executives sat in stunned silence. A few looked down, ashamed. Others tried to protest, but Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't come to debate. She came to lead. And for the first time in a long time, Delvo Technologies was being led by someone who actually listened, someone who acted, and someone who never forgot what it felt like to be underestimated. And all of this started because someone didn't think she looked like a CEO. They were right. She didn't look like their idea of a CEO. She was better. Inside conference room A, the air was thick with confusion. A dozen senior managers sat around the gleaming mahogany table, their expressions ranging from puzzled to irritated. Some stared blankly at the door. Others exchanged skeptical glances. A few checked their watches, clearly expecting just another corporate reshuffling or briefing. What they weren't expecting was a reckoning. The double doors opened. Vanessa Parker entered with calm authority. Her posture was straight, her face unreadable. She wore professionalism like armor. With slow, deliberate steps, she walked to the head of the table and stood behind the executive mic, adjusting it without saying a word at first. She paused. Then she looked each person in the eye before speaking. "Good morning. I'm Vanessa Parker, your new CEO." The room shifted. A few leaned forward. Several eyebrows raised. No one applauded. "I was told to wait outside this building today because someone assumed I didn't belong here. And from the looks I'm getting right now, it seems many of you may agree." Silence. One man cleared his throat. Another let out an awkward chuckle, trying to break the tension. But Vanessa didn't smile back. She remained composed, focused. "Let me be clear. This company is changing," she said. "And that change begins right now." With those words, she opened the black folder she had carried in. Inside were names, printed statements, and documentation that no one at that table ever expected to be read aloud. "Daniel Green, Chief Operating Officer. You've been reported repeatedly for blocking qualified women from promotions. You've dismissed their efforts, cut them out of meetings, and buried their project contributions. Terminated." Daniel's eyes widened. He started to speak, but Vanessa held up a hand. "No comments. This isn't a debate. It's overdue accountability." She turned to the next page. Cynthia Hale, VP of Strategy. Multiple HR complaints, some of which were mysteriously dropped. Casual racism, repeated microaggressions, and a pattern of discrediting Black and Hispanic colleagues. Terminated. Cynthia's mouth opened slightly. She looked at the board members behind Vanessa, but they gave no support. Their silence said everything they knew. They had seen the reports too. One by one, Vanessa moved down the list. George Banks, Director of Product, known for explosive temper, threatening junior staff, and retaliating against whistleblowers. Terminated. Michelle Zhang, Head of Communications, consistently leaked internal information to manipulate public image and avoid responsibility. Terminated. Victor Sanders, Facilities Lead, covered up a harassment case instead of reporting it to HR. Terminated. Each name dropped like a weight in the room. Vanessa wasn't just firing people. She was exposing a culture of abuse, neglect, and corporate rot that had quietly grown beneath the surface of Delvo Technologies for years. Some of the remaining managers sat frozen. Others began sweating. A few looked down at their hands, avoiding eye contact entirely. Vanessa paused and closed the folder gently. "This isn't personal," she said, "but it is necessary." Her voice remained calm, but unwavering. For too long, this company has allowed bad leadership to thrive behind closed doors. That ends today. If you're sitting here and know you've mistreated people, ignored truth, or stood by silently while others suffered, know this: I will find out. And when I do, you will be held accountable. The room stayed dead silent. Then Vanessa added, "To those of you who believe in this company's mission, who treat others with respect, and who want to be part of a better future, you're safe. In fact, you're needed. Because what we build next will define who we are, and it will no longer be built on fear." She stepped back from a mic, straightened her folder, and gave one final look across the table. Leadership is no longer a title you get to hide behind. From now on, it's something you earn every day. With that, she walked out, leaving behind a stunned silence and the first spark of a company reborn. But who was Vanessa Parker? To many in that boardroom, she had appeared out of nowhere, calm, collected, and in complete control. But her story didn't begin in a corporate tower. It began in a two-bedroom apartment in South Atlanta, with cracked windows and a fridge that was often half empty. Vanessa was raised by a single mother, Denise Parker, a woman who juggled jobs as a night shift nurse and a part-time grocery clerk just to keep the lights on. Vanessa watched her mother sacrifice everything without a complaint, and from that sacrifice, she learned strength. Not the loud kind, the kind that keeps showing up even when the world tells you to sit down. From a young age, Vanessa knew that being a Black woman with ambition wasn't just hard. It was a battlefield. Teachers doubted her. Classmates mocked her. Guidance counselors tried to steer her toward more realistic careers. But Vanessa didn't flinch. She worked twice as hard, graduated top of her high school class, and earned a scholarship to Spelman College, where she majored in economics. From there, she set her sights even higher and was accepted into Harvard Business School, a place where people like her were still considered the exception, not the norm. And Harvard? It wasn't welcoming. Vanessa was often the only black woman in the room. During internships, she was frequently mistaken for the assistant. When she presented in meetings, people assumed she was taking notes, until she spoke with more intelligence and strategy than half the room combined. But every microaggression, every closed door, every dismissive glance only sharpened her. She didn't just survive in male-dominated boardrooms. She thrived in them. After years of navigating toxic cultures and glass ceilings, Vanessa made a bold move. She walked away from a six-figure job at a major firm to build her own tech startup. It focused on ethical AI and workforce automation, tech that didn't just replace people, but empowered them. It was risky. There were months she couldn't pay herself a salary. Investors passed on her over and over, often praising the idea but doubting her ability to lead. Still, she pressed on. 5 years later, her company was acquired for $100 million. But Vanessa wasn't celebrating her bank balance. She was already looking for her next mission. She didn't want just to make money. She wanted to change the system that kept people like her on the outside looking in. That's when Delvaux Technologies came calling. The company was struggling. Brilliant products, terrible culture. High turnover. Employee trust, an all-time low. A legacy leadership team out of touch with a modern workplace. They were desperate for a turnaround, and they were expecting another corporate yes-man to step in quietly. They didn't expect Vanessa Parker. And Vanessa didn't come to play politics. She came prepared. Before stepping foot in the building, she had already reviewed every internal report, from overlooked harassment claims to exit interviews filled with red flags. She pored over team performance data, diversity metrics, and employee surveys. She knew exactly where the rot was hiding. Vanessa didn't need to raise her voice to prove she belonged. She had something stronger: the facts, the receipts, and the vision. Behind that calm smile was a tactician, a strategist, a builder of cultures, not just companies. She wasn't there for a title. She was there to fix what no one else had the courage to confront. Vanessa Parker wasn't just a CEO. She was a force of accountability in a world that had spent far too long looking the other way. And when she walked into Delvaux, she wasn't walking into a job. She was walking into a broken empire with one goal: rebuild it better. In the weeks that followed, Delvaux Technologies went viral. News of Vanessa Parker's bold first day didn't just circulate within corporate circles. It exploded across the internet. Screenshots of her speech were shared. Tweets quoted her one-liners, and video clips from security footage, leaked by an anonymous employee, showed the stunned faces of senior executives as they were let go. The moment became more than just a workplace story. It became a movement. Thousands of women, especially black professionals, took to social media to share their own stories. Stories of being overlooked, talked over, underestimated. And in every comment, Vanessa's name came up as a symbol of hope, of what could happen when someone finally said, enough. The hashtags #Vanessa Parker Effect and #SheBelongs trended for days. News anchors called her the CEO who cleaned house in one meeting. Talk shows debated whether her no-nonsense approach should be the new standard. And in every conversation, the message was the same. This wasn't just about one company. It was about changing the game for everyone. Inside the walls of Delvaux, something even bigger was happening. For the first time in years, employees started speaking up without fear. HR offices received honest feedback instead of silence. Team leaders were required to complete leadership and empathy training. Managers were evaluated not just on performance, but on how they treated people. Vanessa didn't just replace toxic leaders. She rewired the culture. She promoted from within, giving long-overlooked talent a chance to rise. She implemented open-door policies that actually meant something. She launched a company-wide mentorship program that matched senior staff with junior employees across departments. Not to talk at them, but to listen. And slowly, things began to shift. Productivity increased. Creativity returned. People collaborated more, and conflict decreased. Investors took notice. Within 1 quarter, profits soared by 27%, and the board, once hesitant about hiring a CEO who didn't fit the mold, stood proudly behind her at press conferences. But amid all the high-level changes and viral fame, Vanessa didn't forget the small moments, especially the one at the front desk. The young receptionist who had asked her to wait outside had expected to be fired on the spot. He couldn't look her in the eye for days. He avoided meetings, apologized quietly to anyone who would listen, and prepared himself for the inevitable. But it never came. Instead, Vanessa called him into her office. She didn't shout. She didn't shame him. She offered him something else, a chance to learn. "You made an assumption," she told him, "one that reflects a bigger problem in our society. But I believe people can grow if they're willing to be honest with themselves." He was enrolled in a comprehensive sensitivity and unconscious bias program, paired with a mentor, and kept his job. 6 months later, he volunteered to lead inclusivity onboarding for new hires. Because Vanessa Parker didn't just believe in accountability, she believed in transformation. Her message, shared in speeches, interviews, and even etched into the glass wall outside her office, was simple but unforgettable. Don't judge people by how they look when they walk through your door. Judge them by what they do when they sit at the table. Delvo Technologies had once been known for cutting-edge tech. Now it was known for something more, a CEO who looked like change and delivered it. Vanessa didn't just take a seat at the table. She rebuilt the entire room and left the door open behind her. If this story inspired you, don't forget to give a like. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in Vanessa's shoes? And if you want more powerful, real-life stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.